Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Figma Fridays with Rocksauce Studios. My name is RJ Nye, and today I'm going to talk about renaming and batch renaming in Figma. And one of the first things you'll need is to download a plugin called Rename It. And you can find it on the Figma community, which I've linked here below. And from here, this plugin is going to allow you to be able to batch rename and smartly rename whatever layers or components that you have. And one of the most important processes in a workflow for creating any design file, design system, is making sure that you have an organized system of icons, components, frames, page names, etc. And using something like Rename It is a way to help kind of maintain that order, maintain that consistency across, potentially dozens or even hundreds of frames ultimately. And so, yeah, once you have the Rename It plugin installed, I'll show you how it works down here. I've brought in some icons over from an existing design system from another project, just to use as an example for this project. And let's see, let's say I have two types of icons. I have a set of tier 1 icons, which are just more flat, more basic types of icons. And then I have tier 2 icons, which are something a little bit more complex. They have color, and ultimately they are, just visually much more dynamic than what's going on in tier 1. And so ultimately, we're going to use the Rename It tool in order to quickly rename all these different icons to eventually turn into variants, for example, for use in like a design system. And so in this case, I'm going to choose, I'm going to start with these icons here, these chevrons. And so from there, once I've selected them, normally you could go to plugins, go to Rename It, rename selected layers, or if you hit Command /, you can use the built-in Figma function in order to just quickly run a plugin. So in this case, I'll choose Rename It, and I'll choose the action that I want, which in this case is rename selected layers. And that should bring up the pop-up. There it is. And from here, it gives you essentially a text box to enter whatever you want these components to be renamed to. And so in this case, I already have them named left, right, down, and up, which I want to preserve. And so what I can do here is, if I need to ultimately give it a classification, such as like a chevron, I can type that right here, chevron. And since I need to have the current names as part of the finalized name, I'll type /, and then I'll preserve it by clicking this button here that says layer name. These are actually just shortcuts. These are actually commands that it'll insert for you if you click on any of these. It really helps speed up the process if you're like me and beforehand when you're designing all these icons, you're kind of giving everything a rudimentary but ultimately unique name. This kind of helps speed up the process of maintaining those names you might have already given some of these components. So in this case, the new batch structure for renaming is chevron / parentheses asterisk, which in that case will preserve all the current names for these components. And you'll see at the bottom what that preview would ultimately look like. And so that looks good to me. So I'm going to hit rename, and let's see. For these here, radio 1, radio 2, check 1, 2, 3, etc., I don't necessarily want to keep those as 1, 2. I want them to be more defined as like on or off. It's pretty important to make sure that kind of clarity is maintained for using as variants. So in this case, I'm actually going to just select all of my off states. For example, these 3. I'm going to run the plugin again. And these, I'm simply going to completely rename them to what the off state is. And so I'm just going to choose off. And then for these, I'm going to choose those and name them to on. And in this case, this one is fairly unique, so I'm just going to manually rename it. And by the way to manually rename something within Figma, if you select a layer or you select a group or a frame or something, just click on it, hit Command R, and you can see on the left side panel over here, you can rename it right within there. It's a really quick way to rename something without having to move your mouse over, double click. And so in this case, I have pretty much the names of everything established. or at least the status, I mean. And so from here, I can maintain the status of these icons, but now ultimately give them that classification that I need. So in this case, for bookmark, I want to choose bookmark and then hit layer name. And those have it there. I'll do the same for these radio buttons. And then same for these check boxes. And once I have everything named here, I can start converting everything into components so that I can then start grouping it together as variants. So in this case, I'm just going to group or select everything here, click on the drop-down arrow next to the component icon, and choose Create Multiple Components. And then from here, I will manually group everything as variants for each, I guess, category of icon. And then finally, one of the last things I'll do is to make sure that these are all still grouped together as tier 1 icons, I need to select everything, run that rename plugin again. I'm going to type in tier 1, hit layer name to preserve the entire structure that we've come up with, and hit rename. And so now whenever you go to the assets panel, everything is under the tier 1 icons. And just as an example, you can see how everything is here as a separate icon that we can choose. And then if there's a different state for any of these individual icons, those are all still maintained as well. And so essentially that's just like one way you can really use the Rename It plugin, not to just do one giant action to rename everything for you, but you can use it almost like just a secondary tool in order to just start quickly renaming stuff and shortcutting a lot of the process and tedium of renaming these things. Then of course from here, I could just select, this variant and then rename all of these here, such as like status, direction, status for that one, and status for this one. I'm just a stickler for that kind of stuff. I don't want to leave it to just say, property 1 or whatever. Anyway, so everything that we've done here with the Rename It plugin, we'll do the exact same for these tier 2 icons over here. And so let's see. So for these, we'll probably want to give them specific names. And so that we'll probably want to do individually. And so in this case, this one will be house. This one will be unboxing. This would be, let's say, tree. This will be review. This will be profile. This will be, say, authority. And this will say calculator. And so since we've renamed all those individually, now we can finally group them together as tier 2 icons. So in that case, I'm just going to select everything, hit the shortcut for renaming, and then I'm going to choose or type tier 2 / layer name. And then everything is maintained within that structure. And then finally, I'm going to make sure to convert them all into multiple components. And so from here, yeah, you can see everything is quickly renamed using the Rename It plugin. It's really a great way to speed up, that part of your workflow that's otherwise spent very tediously going through the names of everything, trying to make sure everything is preserved. If you use the Rename It plugin a lot, you'll start to really understand how you can use it to shortcut a lot of these methods that otherwise you have to keep track of manually. Anyway, if you like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. In the description below, there should be a link to this Figma file within the Figma community. And so please check it out. You can check out these icons that are here. You can click on the link to find the Rename It plugin as well within the Figma community. Anyway, my name is RJ Nye with Rocksauce Studios, and thanks for watching Figma Fridays, and we'll be back next week.